Alright, bringing you another Deep Rock Galactic video today. That's right, we're talking about best class. Oh my god! I know this is a difficult one. I talked about doing this video with a couple of folks, and they acted like I went to a woke convention and didn't know gender-neutral pronouns or something. Like, how could you do that? Well, I'm doing it. So yes, this is highly subjective, and I know the best advice that you can ever give someone for these games is the best class is the one that you think is the most fun. I think that advice is generally garbage. Sure, that is true. You should absolutely play what's most fun for you, and I'm all about fun. But I've come from a lot of different games, and yeah, some are just straight up better than others, and you may find that yeah, that's all I can say on it. So I'm hoping that I can tell you what the best class is, based on if you're a new player, based on if you're trying to play in groups, based on if you're trying to play in solo, and I kind of came up with this, like I just pulled this right out of my butt cheek. Burst AoE, crowd control, survival, and mobility. This is all really difficult to do, especially given the nature of this game and how well balanced that this game is, and how good of a job that they've done. I feel like every class is valuable, and this is probably maybe the hardest game I've had to do this for. Not that I've really done it for a lot of other games, but yeah. So here we go. Why does my opinion matter, or why should you be listening, or why might this actually be good? It's based on 700 hours of playtime, and it's also based on a lot of research. This really should be like 20 things longer, and it should be way more Reddits, because that's a lot of that is influenced my opinion. But a lot of that's just based on my own experience. If you're struggling already to listen to me, the best class is Driller. There it is. So now you can close out the video. Yeah, I think it's the Driller. I'm going to talk about each one, though. So if you want to stay for the ride, that's great. Or if you already want to go down to the comments and tell me I'm wrong, awesome. Let's do that. I do want to hear what you guys think. So definitely good. Alright, so let's just get into it. So, Scout. Is he the best in the game? No. I already said it was a Driller, right? So why am I even talking about these now? Well, right, it's Sunday. Let's go over it. Burst damage. So I gave him 3 out of 5 here. All this can be very different depending on which mods and overclocks and builds overall that you're using, right? But so I'm just trying to give you, if you added all the builds up together and divided it, what's the average, what's the general, and this is what I'm going to give you here. So generally speaking, he is single target damage burst, right? That's what he does, and you would think, well, if that's what his role is, shouldn't it be higher? Well, I think some folks burst better, and I think some folks also do more damage. He kind of gets put into the single target damage category. Do other classes single target damage better than him? Yes, they do. But this is like the only thing he does in terms of killing bugs, because when it comes to AoE, he is the worst. I know people love to make these arguments that he can do AoE damage and that he can clear waves and swarms and things like this, and yeah. I mean, he can, but are you telling me that he can do it as good as everybody else consistently? No, come on, get out of here. There's a reason why everyone says that this guy's not good at swarm clears, because he's not. So AoE damage, he's only getting 1 here. You can spec your guns for like blow-through rounds and things like this. Try to get some more AoE out of him, but he ain't gonna compare to the guys who can. So I'm only giving him 1. When it comes to CC, I'm really thinking about his like IFG and cryo grenades. The IFG is slow. This completely immobilizes stuff. I know that the IFGs are the cooler thing. Cooler. Cryo's cooler. But, that's probably like his biggest CC that comes to mind. I'm sure there's mods that add electricity, or overclocks that add electricity damage, which add slow, and that's technically CC. So shouldn't I pump that up? Now, because I think the other classes can more or less do the same thing, and even when you do utilize those things, it's still just not even as good as what some other classes can do. So just generally speaking overall, now his CC is going to stay at 2. One other thing I will say about it is you can kind of use the grapple to crowd control bugs. They'll follow you around. So maybe someone's having trouble resing someone else, and generally that's the scout's job. But an alternative method would be to grapple away, luring bugs away from the group. So yeah, in a sense, that could be crowd control. So survivability is the hardest one to do here. It is. It just is. So I think this is more or less going to be the same across the board, but for different reasons. Why did I give him such high points for survival when literally everyone has the same health and damage mitigation? Well, I gave him 4 out of 5 because of his grapple. I mean, the ability to just get out of dodge is that's going to help you survive, right? And mobility, again, the grapple is giving him 5 out of 5. I don't think anyone beats him on mobility. This isn't really a secret to players who've been playing for even like 2 hours. But if you're new, that might be oh, he is he? Okay. So yeah, mobility. This is his number one thing. Mobility and single target damage. Yeah, to me he's the guy that he picks off kind of like special or priority targets, and he does a lot of mining, and he gets a lot of those secondary objectives that people would take longer to get to. So yeah, he's not the best in the game though. When it comes to flares, everyone has their own flares, so I guess you could say it's technically not needed. I think it's very helpful though to illuminate an entire room. When it comes to grappling, yeah, I think the other classes can technically get to the same locations that he can get to, so it's not like he's doing anything more special, but he could just do it better. So, is that needed? So, if you are new, I think this class is great, maybe the best. Him and the gunner easily are the best new or best class for new players. Why is that? His guns are ridiculously easy to use. They're simple. And if you stink at getting around, the grapple is going to negate any challenge that this game would give you in terms of navigating. Is that up high? Is it over there? Where is that little hole? How do I get to that? It doesn't matter. The grapple is just going to shortcut everything for you. So if you are new, I think the grapple is amazing. And if you're new, I think the ease of use for the guns is also amazing. So all high marks there. For solo play, I think a lot of guides will say, like my resources that I looked at, they all seem to give high marks for Scout for solo, and I think it's because of this flare ability, because he can light up an entire cave. When you're by yourself, you can't rely on other people to help you mine stuff or to help you find things. So being able to see all of that is a huge benefit. And you might even be thinking, well, if you take Bosco, can't he light up stuff? He kind of sucks at lighting up stuff, honestly, and it's not cool to use Bosco. If you didn't know, yeah, you're supposed to play 6x2 without Bosco. So having the flares would be very beneficial in a solo environment. And in terms of the group, I think he gets a lot of no marks, actually. I think a lot of the sources think of him as maybe the worst for a group. I guess because 3 other people have their own flares, 3 other people have their own ways of getting around. So yeah, he's just not as necessary, I guess. And because his AOE is not so hot, and because people can more or less do the same damage as him, even single target, yeah, he kind of gets outshined quite a bit by other classes. But I think he's still valuable though in groups, because lighting up an entire cave is awesome. Getting to those resources quickly and more efficiently is also awesome. And yeah, picking off those kind of nasty priorities and a little bit of CC is all good. So yeah, maybe he's best for new players, and he shines really nicely in solo. But yeah, for groups, maybe not the best, and overall, definitely not the best class. But yeah, I think they're all great. So next, Gunner. Burst damage. Again, all these things, right? Depending on how you build them, these could change. But overall, this is what I think. Burst damage, he's okay. I think he's middle of the road. I think this could be a 2 or it could be a 4, depending on how you spec this. So that's why I kind of felt like in the middle. I put a thing out in the Discord about what people thought of this, and I really didn't get much back. But Bob had mentioned that maybe you should do a sustained damage category. And yeah, if I did do that, and that's not a bad one to do, the gunner would get like 5 out of 5. That's kind of like his thing. He does the most consistent, reliable, sustained damage. Um, but not the best burst, and not the best AoE either. I mean, he does some AoE. Remember Carpet Bomber back in the day? Back in the day, like a year ago? Right? That was amazing for AoE. So that you could definitely get some more points depending on how you spec this for AoE. It's not that he can't do AoE. He does. He can. But he can also do a little bit more single target. So I don't know. I kind of feel like he's in the middle when it comes to burst and AoE. For CC, for crowd control, again, not really his thing. Scout and Gunner, and I would even say Engineer, they're really not CC. So what can he do? Why does he even get 2? So his shields, actually, believe it or not, are kind of like a form of CC. You can block off a tunnel, right? Bugs don't want to come into the shield, so you control the crowd that way. You can also push bugs or kind of impede them or make them go around using the shield. I think if you're manipulating the movement of the bugs, you're controlling the crowd, so that's CC. So shields, absolutely. And zips, in a way, are crowd control as well. The bugs will try to get as close to you as possible when you're on these things. So if you're on the one end, they'll go closer to that. If you're on the other, they'll go over there. So I kind of feel like zips should be included into the CC. And he does have some mods and some overclocks that give you a little bit. Like I recently did the neurotoxin build, right? And that slows. So that's definitely CC. Like a neurotoxin CC build would actually probably maybe be a little higher, right? Maybe even like 4 out of 5 because you would be slowing and fearing. But overall, this guy's really not crowd controlling stuff. So that's why I only gave him 2. And survivability, again, the hardest one. Why is he 4 when everyone has the same health and damage mitigation? The zip lines, right? You're invulnerable to melee attacks when you're on that thing, assuming that you don't, put the line, on the ground. If you put it up in the air, right? You're totally safe. Only range can hit you when you're hanging off of that. So yeah, that gets high marks for survival. And then the shields, right? That's pretty obvious. You can go in there, get your shields back, take some cover. So yeah, so he gets 4. I mean, you could even maybe give him 5 because of the zips and the shields, but I thought 4 was plenty. And mobility. The only thing that really comes to my mind are the zip lines, and they're rather good, and everyone can use them, which is great. So I'm going to give him 3. I think it's middle of the road. If he had unlimited zips, I'd maybe give him more. If he had some more like speed and or other kind of things, I'd give him more points. But I think the zips are kind of pretty. I think they're solid. I think it's in the middle. Maybe you want to give this a 2. I could see that as well. He's definitely not the most mobile. I don't think he's the least mobile either. So Gunner, I think he's great for new players. When you do the tutorial, I mean, obviously the developers think he's, well, maybe I shouldn't say obviously. I mean, they allow you to play, they make you play as him in the tutorial, and I think it's for good reason. He's pretty well rounded, and he's got the shields, right, which is, an OS button, you could say. More or less point and shoot with his guns, pretty simple. So I think for new players, this guy's really good because he can he can lay down the hurt and he can kind of prevent getting hurt. And the zips and just everything he does, he's good, well-rounded class. So yeah, I think the Gunner or the Scout are the best classes to play if you're new. In terms of solo, I don't know if he's necessarily bad at solo. I don't think any of them are bad at solo. I just think that there are better options if you're going in with solo. He's not going to move around the map as quickly as a scout can. He's not going to be able to set up these like defensive kind of structures, if you want to call it that, like the engineer can. And because he can't crowd control very well, yeah, I don't think this is the best solo class. I do, however, think this may in fact be the best group class. This character, to me, or this class, is more of a support class. He's not going to do the best burst, he's not going to do the best AoE, but he's got that sustained damage, so it's like whatever that guy is doing, plus this, is really going to help you. Yeah, what else can I say about that? I mean, the shields help people, right? I mean, very often people will go down and you can throw a shield and res them. That's very supportive. I'm not going to say that he's required in Hazard 5, but I think Hazard 5 and above, his impact on the mission is more felt. Definitely on harder difficulties. That shield comes in big time. It's so like on the lower difficulties, you can get away with never using the shield. That's just to be true. But on the higher difficulties, yeah, I think you get a lot more shield play. So, yeah, high marks for group, low marks for solo, and I think high marks if you're a new player. Alright, next one. Engineer. So, burst damage. Hands down, I think he's the best burst damage in the game. That breach cutter is disgusting, and that thing where he does like the nuke with the other one, amazing. His burst damage is out of control good. It's so good. I would love to see an argument that says another class has better burst than him. Or what about the Driller's C4? Alright, that is pretty explosive. But he can only do that a couple of times, right? Whereas like this guy can lay down burst like again and again. He's got a lot of bullets in the chamber when it comes to how many times he can burst. It's just disgusting. When I'm playing with new players, I find that I have the easiest time carrying. Like, oh, a sticky situation? Let me just delete the screen with my amazing burst. That's how I feel. AoE could definitely be higher. I mean, I just talked about the breach cutter and that, the rocket launcher, whatever you want to. I can't remember the name. I'm terrible at these things. But he can do like a nuke, right? I mean that's crazy AoE. And the way that you spec the breach cutter, you can definitely get some more AoE out of that. You can definitely clear waves with it. So this could in fact be higher. Maybe it should be 4 and not 3. But there are other builds, there are other specializations that you can do with him, and I don't feel like he is naturally or is inherently AoE savvy. So I gave him 3. When it comes to CC, this is also kind of weak, like the gunner and the scout. I'm thinking the lure is a form of CC, right? The platforms, I think you can mod your plats so that if there's if there's path A and path B, and you put a platform on path B and they run parallel next to one another, they will go to the other path, the path that does not have the plat. They will try to avoid the plat, is what I'm saying, if they can. But that doesn't mean that they will. Like, if there is no other route in which to get to you, they will walk right over the plats. But given that there is a path they could take where there are no plats, they will go around your plats and take that instead. So to me, that is a form of CC. I think you can add some electrical damage either to his bullets and or his turrets. That's going to give you some slow, so you could potentially give him more points there. But I think generally, overall, now CC is not really his game, so I'm giving him 2. Survivability, oh, Chris, again, with 4. Everyone's just 4 across the board? Sure. Yeah, this is the hardest one to do because everyone has the same health and damage mitigation, so what do you do for that? You can create these platform towns where you hop back and forth between them, so that kind of gives you some survivability. Your turrets are taking out those stragglers, and or things that are just about dead, so that in a way that kind of helps you. You can run around in circles while your turrets are killing things. You can build bridges and things like this. So and I know that almost sounds more like mobility, but yeah, kind of abusing those things to keep yourself alive, I think gives him some high points for survivability. I definitely think he's like the most defensive character. Like, if you're talking about like hunkering down and like taking on the wave, like I probably feel the most confident with this guy. And then yeah, last is mobility. I think he's the least mobile of the characters, and I can't run an engineer build without dash. Yep. But what about plats, man? Like, and you just said bridges. Like, isn't that mobility? Sure, yeah, and that's why he gets 2 points. The bridges that he can create across openings are amazing, and or like the ladders and things like this. That's all very good. But it doesn't really increase his speed, and those take time to build. So if you're in a oh crap situation and you haven't already kind of started making those things, it's probably going to be too late. So yeah, I give him 2 points. All right, and oh, let's go back. Hold on. New players, solo, and group. So if you're a new player, this maybe is not the best class. Why do I say that? It's not because his guns aren't easy to shoot. I mean, obviously the shotgun is one of the easiest guns to shoot in any game, right? Like, we always say, like, how easy it is to shoot the scouts' guns, but can we take a second to realize that the shotgun is not a hard weapon to shoot? Alright. So, it's not because of that. It's really because of the turret. It's a little bit of maintenance. Knowing when to set it up, and, always deconstructing it and reconstructing it, moving it around, making sure that it has bullets. I mean, very often when you're new, you forget to reload it. Depending on how you mod it, you might need to point it in the correct direction. So, I kind of think it's the maintenance of the turrets. Um, and knowing when to burst is also, I think, a little bit of a, not a struggle, but something that takes a little bit of time to learn, right? So I don't recommend him as a class for new players, but that doesn't mean that you can't. And I mean, because you can do all these different difficulties, like 1 through 5, and then all the modded ones, yeah, all the classes can be played for new players. So it's not to say that you can't play this as new, but I think there are easier options, right? And that's how I'm ranking it. So I would say he gets lower marks for new players. And then what about solo? I think he might be the best for solo. I know other guides that I've researched say that the scout is pretty high up there, or that the driller is pretty high up there. I think engineer. I think if you know how to play this game, you put some time in. I think the engineer is the best solo class. Um, Turrets, right? That support fire, and especially if you're going to go in there with Bosco. You got Bosco and turrets. Wow, that's pretty good for solo, man. You could just do all these amazing things with plats, which is also great for solo. And if you add in the lure, you get like this very well-rounded kind of jack of all trades kind of character. So yeah, I think for solo, high marks, and for group, yeah, it never hurts to have someone that can delete the screen in a very messy situation. And all these things are very supportive and helping players get across things, and tagging targets that were missed or whatever. So I think he's about middle of the road for group play. I think he's high mark for solo, and I think he's kind of lower end for newer players. Alright, last but not least, this is who I think is the best in the game. This I debated quite a bit with some folks for a long time. I was like, no way. The engineer is the best. He can do everything. Like, why would you say any different? But then when I started playing the driller, especially using the cryo cannon, I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. This guy's shoulders are extra broad. If there was like a category for broad shoulders, he would be like 6 out of 5. This guy can carry super hard. If you have a good driller, it can make a has 5 feel like a has 1. It can make an elite deep dive feel not so elite. Really, having a skilled driller can night and day a mission. It's just the truth. So burst. He's probably not the best for burst damage, and that might be like his only weakness. You might be thinking, well, what about C4? Well, what about this? What about that? Sure, there are ways, again, that you can mod or spec your build so that you could, increase or decrease some of these things. But just overall, compared to the other classes, I don't think that he's the best at burst. I think he's the worst. But that's okay, though, because everything else is godly about this guy. His AoE is the best. His primary weapons, his flamethrower, come on, it's a flamethrower. What does that do? It does AoE damage. His cryo cannon is a flamethrower, but instead of flames, it's ice, right? Wow. And then his sludge pump, again, AoE damage. So this guy is the AoE machine. Also, because of the AoE, they just slapped on, like slowing and or freezing, all these things with to his AoE. So I have to give him high marks for both. Yeah, he's hitting all the bugs, and he's applying some sort of slow or something like this to all of them at the same time as well. So because he's CCing them, and because he's hitting these, he's like the best wave clearer or swarm killer. Some people might say the gunner is the best swarm killer. Some people might say the engineer is the best swarm killer. The engineer, I think, definitely gets the highest kill counts typically at the end of a match, because his turret just picks off all these things that it's just incredible how many kills the turret alone gets. But his CC and his AoE are the best. And because this game is 50% or more killing bugs, yeah, being able to do this, he's almost like the mage, right? To put it into like an MMO perspective. All right, and then survivability. I think it's the only one where I give him like a little bit less. Maybe you could still say it's 4. His impact axe combined with like the vampire perk will give him health back. You can do some cool stuff with like getting health back with your drills. So I guess you could pump this up a little bit, but there's no like oh crap button that I can think of for him that wouldn't actually potentially hurt him as well. Um, with this CC, you might even think like, well, isn't his survivability way higher because of how good his CC is? Sure, yeah, you could absolutely make all those arguments, just to make him even sound even better. And then mobility, his drills is what I'm thinking of to get through all that dirt. Otherwise, his mobility isn't any better than anybody else's. But yeah, no one can turn the entire map into his own personal canvas like this guy can. So like you could even say this should be even higher. But yeah, why is he the best? He has an extremely large kit. People say that the engineer is well-rounded. This guy's pretty well-rounded. Like, yeah, it's just incredible. Like he just doesn't have the burst, and it's like the only thing that he's not doing that everyone else can do. But you don't even need that burst when you can CC things to more or less make them take crazy amounts more damage. So in a way, his burst is 5 out of 5 because of the CC. It's just amazing what these two things can do for everything else in these categories. Yeah, his C4 is explosive. His drills give maybe the best ability in the game to get through all that dirt. And you can kind of use that for survivability as well. You can drill through dirt to get away from stuff. You can make those underground bunkers. So like that could be through the roof. It's so hard to rate this guy with these things in the way that this game is constructed. So anyways, if you're a new player, this guy always gets like the worst marks for new players. I think his kit is too large, and that's why people think he's not the best for new players. His weapons are not traditional pew pew pew. You're not getting an AR with this guy. The gun that everyone's familiar and knows how to use. You're getting these kind of spray weapons. But on that same sword on the other edge, this if I was gonna play with my mom, I'd probably recommend the driller for her, my personal opinion, because she can just shoot in the vicinity of bugs and she's gonna tag some stuff. But it's hard for new players in that if you're trying to utilize all of his entire kit, that's where the challenge is. And I think because that challenge exists, that's why people don't think that the driller is the best for new players. I would make the argument that I just made a second ago, and I would also say that depending on the hazard levels that you're doing, you can play any class you want. It's not like he's so complex that you should shy away from him. But if I had to, that's what I would say. I would say he's not the best for new players. For solo play, yeah, I think he's amazing. If engineer's not the best solo, this guy is. And I know like guides will say that the scout is very good because of the flares and because of like he can zip around so quickly. But no, your ability to just absolutely control the bugs and destroy them. The challenge of the swarm isn't nearly as hard for him as it is for the other guys. Yeah, especially when you're using the cryo cannon. And he can more or less get to anywhere with those drills. So yeah, this guy just does it all. I mean, he just can't illuminate the rooms like the scout can, and he doesn't have the burst, but you don't need the burst when you have like this crazy CC. So yeah, I think he's great for solo, and for group play, he's amazing. Maybe the best for group play as well. Being able to control all these bugs, it helps your team. Very like I don't know. I feel like I'm like a broken record. This guy's just amazing overall. And I don't know why he's so unpopular. That seems to be a commonality amongst all these guides and things that talk about how unpopular he is. I think because he's so different. So, anyways, I hope that helped. To give you an idea of like who's overall the best, who's best for new players, who's best for solo, who's best for group play. Yeah, I think it's hands down. I think it's the driller. I argued for the longest time that it was the engineer, but After playing the driller for a significant amount of time, it's just pretty obvious that this guy's the best. I secretly think that the developers have him in the place that he's in because he's unpopular, so I think any kind of like nerfs he gets, quote unquote, are like really minimal. I don't think they want to hurt this guy in any way because I think they want more people playing him. So I think if you were like one of those min-maxers and you only want to play the best, I would recommend this. I think this is definitely the way to go. Everyone wants him, right? Everyone wants him, and there are some mission types where he is just so darn good. Like those pipe missions, the refinery ones. Oh, he's disgusting. So, yeah, Driller's amazing. And to kind of close out this video, I want to give a special thanks to Tainted Horizon. This guy set up the Discord channel pretty much 100% by himself. He's just a really nice person, and he's really cool, and he was very patient with me. I'm a little bit older, and he's a little bit younger, so he understands those things a lot better than I do. And I didn't pay him, or I didn't even ask him to do it. He more or less volunteered, and he did a really great job, and he does a really good job at explaining things. I just think he's one of the coolest people ever. I've met a lot of cool people doing these videos now, but yeah, I had to say something. This guy is just what a nice character. I really appreciate him. So thank you so much, Horizon, and thank you to everyone that watched this video. I hope this was helpful. Please, if you have comments, tell me what you think is best. Did I ramble on too long? Did I not say enough? Yeah, let me know down below. And as always, thank you so much, and please stay tuned for more.